Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Tealium webinar, How to Get More Out of Customer Data with Machine Learning. My name is Matt Parisi. I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Tealium, and I am joined by Dave Lucas, who is our Senior Director of Product at Tealium, where he focuses on products for analytics and machine learning. Dave has over 15 years of experience in leading data teams and programs across industries and joined Tealium after being a customer of ours at an e-commerce brand for 2 years. Today, we will be going over learnings from Tealium's development of our most recent ML-powered product. We'll cover what challenges companies must conquer to solve the machine learning conundrum. We'll go through how a data supply chain approach supercharges ML results. And then we'll specifically dive into what capabilities are key to get real value from ML across the data supply chain before ultimately revealing Tealium Predict ML, Tealium's newest ML-powered product that Dave will walk us through and take us through exactly why we developed the product the way that we did. And with that, I will turn it over to Dave to go over the lessons learned from Tealium's ML journey.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here with everyone today. You know, it's been a long journey for us. I have to give credit to my colleagues here at Tealium for thinking far ahead of the curve on this, being ahead of the industry, and getting started years ago on work to add machine learning functionality to our products. I learned a lot of the same lessons that the Tealium team has learned myself back when I was leading data teams in industry, and 6 big lessons come to mind. So first of all, you know, I see this all the time with smart teams. It's great to be inspired by a new technology such as ML, but you can't let it command all your attention. It's critical to focus overall on how that technology can actually benefit a business or a customer of a business, right? And this comes via a combination of many conversations with your customers, your stakeholders, as well as a lot of separate work by your technical staff, your engineers, to explore what is actually possible and doable. And over the course of many of those conversations, right, we identified a common shared problem that they wanted help with, which became the basis for our first ML product. This first problem is exacerbated by the fact that the vast majority of organizations don't understand machine learning yet. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. So, a couple quick points of advice. If you're a leader who's the end stakeholder of a machine learning project, you can clarify exactly what you hope to achieve. You must do that clarification. You must give that guidance to your team. It's so difficult to reach this clarity, but as all leaders know, it's hugely valuable in the end. And if you're an engineer or a person who is doing an ML project, be willing to guide your leadership and your colleagues through this noise and this hype, right? Be willing to help them reach that clarity using your skills. Currently, machine learning projects often start with one single data set, and people assume that the hard part is simply deciding what to do with it from this pool of many supposed options, right? It seems like there's unlimited things you can do with ML. The truth is that this approach really isn't scalable. It's not going to succeed in the future. We found that these assumptions that people tend to carry are the opposite of reality on a practical level. In reality, 1,000 customers or 1,000 departments within a huge organization actually have the same 1 to 3 biggest goals. They don't really have 1,000 different options for what they would do with machine learning. And by contrast, though, those same 1,000 customers can have radically different data sets to fuel ML. You'd probably think that you'd expect some similarity, right, or at least between businesses in the same industry, but this really isn't the case in the real world. And this is something that we've learned as we've worked with various customers to test our products. So we had to solve for this, right? Currently, it's really tough to build a machine learning product that's going to serve radically different data sets. Data diversity is incredibly high, even within 2 departments or 2 sub-brands of the same single business. When I was working in industry for a single organization and I only had one data set to focus on, it was relatively easy for me to kind of focus and tune all my efforts toward that one data set, account for all its idiosyncrasies, right? This is how ML is done today, even at the most advanced companies. But this really doesn't scale well for the future, and we're seeing an inevitable bottleneck that we're predicting in the industry probably about a year and a half, 2 years out. At Tealium, we're really putting a lot of effort into staying ahead of this. Any machine learning model in the end is ultimately as good as the data set you feed it, right? This seems obvious, but everyone learns this the hard way, including us. The data is the fuel. There's only so much that any team of brilliant engineers can do to account for problems with that data, right? It's analogous to, if LeBron James starts eating nothing but corn dogs before every Lakers game, he's probably not going to keep playing at an elite level and being an MVP candidate. We're supposedly building a machine learning product here, right, on my team, but we've learned that the product itself is less than half of the picture, the whole picture of what you really need to build. There's also an extensive amount of education, material, documentations, process needed to support such a product and to shape how it's used. This goes beyond the obvious, technical documentation that you need to create for any good product, but it's more about setting the right expectations and ensuring that your broader organization has success at any stage in your journey toward being more data-driven. So here's a quick summary of all those lessons. Sorry for the quick jump back and forth. In the end, it comes down to the fact that you need to recognize you're on a multi-stage journey, if you will, toward better usage of your data. And the best thing you can do is to have continual conversations between your teams to clarify expectations and recognize where you're at on that journey. So where are the challenges along the stages of the journey? What obstacles do you need to overcome at each stage? We know the challenges to even just getting started with machine learning are still very, very real in 2019, 2020. Most brands either haven't gotten started or they're just in the nascent stages, as you see here. I know this from experience, right? Until I joined Tealium in May, I was head of data for a customer, and my team, we were working to make decisions about when and how our brand could dive into the world of using machine learning and AI. We knew the potential value was enormous, but we really struggled to find the right opportunity and the right way to integrate AI and ML because it was just so tough to justify taking our limited staff off of other projects. Frankly, the expense and the risk were just too high, and this is a pervasive problem at all organizations. Even for those organizations who have gotten started, most projects are stalling before they're deployed. Now, to be responsible, I gotta be the first to recognize here that sometimes this failure rate is actually really healthy. It's not a failure rate per se, because it means that you're intentionally stopping a bad project, right, before it continues. But the truth is, often this failure rate really does come down to more barriers that a team wasn't able to overcome yet. So why is this the case? What are these barriers that are derailing these projects? We find here that an easy way to talk about this is to look through the lens of the actual process or workflow for a typical machine learning project. So in the middle right, you've got the machine learning model itself. This is where all the hype is. When people think machine learning, they think about models, algorithms, clustering, lots of fun phrases like that. But when you do a project, you quickly realize this is not the starting point. Your model is only as good as the data you feed it, and it is very hungry for lots of high quality data. And then on the right, you need to deploy this model into your real-time systems and applications so you can actually learn something from it, you can do something from it. And this has two parts, right? Deployment, which is your technical processes, that's kind of DevOps for ML, if you will. And then there's another piece, which we call activation, which is more about ensuring that the model is providing value to the end business and stakeholders. If we view each of these three phases in terms of their relative effort or challenge, we see the middle has actually gotten a lot easier due to a host of great new refinements, code libraries, solutions, etc. It's not surprising, right? This is where the hype is. This is where the industry's focused. But by contrast, that left side is still massively time-consuming, really not much of a way around it with current solutions. Surveys are showing that data scientists often spend 60 to 80% of their time here, and they really hate this stage. I can tell you I sure did myself. Then if you can get everything up to this part right, then the deployment phase is also tough to the point that we now see a new sub-industry springing up around DevOps for ML. And that industry actually isn't doing anything yet beyond the technical challenges to address the activation problem. It actually really isn't something that's been noticed in the industry yet. So in the end, most machine learning projects are perpetuating data fragmentation problems. They're creating new silos. You're not seeing end business value at the scale you'd hope for, and you're creating a vicious cycle. This also illustrates, why it can be dangerous to do a machine learning project within a point solution, such as, let's say, a marketing channel tool, because that value can't really be transferred to other systems, and it can't really be reproduced either. So to do machine learning well, to realize value from it, you need a series of capabilities or solutions which link and cover every stage of the life cycle of your customer data, or as we like to refer to it, the data supply chain. In its most basic form, a data supply chain represents how data is collected, organized, enriched, and ultimately how it's delivered or activated to drive action or analysis. The data supply chain approach ensures you're strategically managing data across its entire life, across all your systems, so that you're maximizing value. This applies not only to the use of a specific technology such as ML, but also to really any other application of your customer data. It ensures you have a solid foundation that prepares you when new technologies and new use cases arise in the future. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Matt to delve into the data supply chain.
Thanks, Dave. Great foundation for us to work from there. So diving into the customer data collection and then delivery landscape further, what we see is that taking a data supply chain approach is much easier said than done. Over time, businesses have added piece upon piece of technology, creating a really messy data picture. While all this technology helped achieve certain CX actions, sending an email or personalizing a website, altogether it creates a challenging situation for optimizing customer experience. Simultaneously, this isn't getting any simpler. It's pretty clear that technology continues to proliferate as opposed to consolidate. Machine learning itself is yet another emerging capability fueled with customer data. So when you plan your data foundation, this diversity of uses, both seen and unseen based on kind of future technology changes and customer behavior changes, you need to take this constantly changing nature of data into account in the strategy and technology that underpins your customer data foundation. The good news is that this effort pays off. Because most companies have a situation like this, where their customers have multiple different profiles within the same company, specific to each individual system. This could be your competitive advantage. There are fragments of the customer view living within these various data sources and customer touchpoints that leave a company, one, unable to deliver the experiences and engagement that customers ultimately demand, two, open up legal and privacy risk, and three, creates duplicate work for things like data collection, segmentation, and triggering actions, because each of these systems have their own unique way of doing that. In this scenario, most companies end up with an unintentional, or at the very least non-optimal, data supply chain that looks like this. This data supply chain is riddled with risk, inefficiency, and limited capabilities. Everything is manual, messy, and cumbersome, probably utilizing a hodgepodge of capabilities in each point system instead of unifying data collection and delivery, and machine learning insights for that matter, for the benefit of all systems. So all companies do actually have a data supply chain. It just hasn't been managed as a strategically important asset unto itself. The advent of ML is the evolution that's going to shine a spotlight on this very common situation. Managing data and your data capabilities themselves through the data supply chain approach ultimately enables you to use data to innovate the customer experience across a wide variety of applications that includes machine learning. The data supply chain is a data-first approach to understanding your customers. What does a data-first approach mean? It means being able to tie all of your data sources together at the individual level, a unified customer profile across the entire customer lifecycle. This points to the need to have capabilities in between data collection and data delivery. So this is where the capabilities along the data supply chain start to come into focus. Specifically, the data needs to be organized in the concept of a person. That requires data transformation, specifically identity resolution, and it adds historical data or persistence needs to the capabilities in that part of the data supply chain. It also requires the capability to build insights into that customer view. So taking the data that's coming in and flowing in from all these various channels, combining it together, performing a calculation or some other manipulation between the two data points to create new data that represents an insight. For example, you might define a VIP customer using data points from many different places, like their purchase history, their website behavior, and or maybe their mobile app usage. So being able to kind of define these new data points using the data coming from each individual channel is something that's important as a capability along the data supply chain. Plotting out everything we discussed so far, we can see that the data supply chain has 5 stages. This is the optimal context within which machine learning capabilities should live to directly drive ROI. By having integrated capabilities all the way through, from the time the data is born, through a customer engagement, whether on their device, in store, or elsewhere, to the time the insight represented by that data is leveraged to drive more action, and so on and so forth in a cycle from there, enables you to put the customer truly at the center of the business, technologically, but also as the business functions and customer experience-wise. We believe that in order to unlock the promise of machine learning, it's largely tied to how well you can incorporate ML into the data supply chain. Looking at how this specifically relates to ML, like Dave mentioned, the first thing is that ML projects require a lot of high-quality data. Companies need a massive, unified data collection footprint that creates high-quality data as it's collected, not after the fact, so that ultimately you don't have to go back and clean data that you collected improperly in the first place. In the transform and enrich stage, this is where Tealium has built our own ML product, Tealium Predict. You want a capability that takes this huge mass of data, sifts through it, and creates more data-driven insights. These insights would require a comprehensive customer profile where they can be stored and then ultimately used to trigger action. So that's why the identity resolution piece in the middle is important. The beauty of injecting insights at this point of the data supply chain, machine learning driven insights and all kinds of other insights, whether they're generated manually or through analyzing data in a different system, is that those insights are natively integrated and ultimately flow downstream to all point solutions where every integrated application, whether that downstream application actually has native machine learning capabilities or not, benefits from the machine learning insight. By injecting the machine learning into the data supply chain in this way, your entire stack becomes ML enabled, not just one point solution. All right, so what specific capabilities at each one of those stages really benefit ML? First, before we go into the capabilities in each individual stage, just based on how other ML tools are emerging in the market, there are some general characteristics of an ideal solution. In the development of our products, we've talked to numerous marketing, data, and IT teams about their ML efforts to date, and there was virtually unanimous feedback about certain shortcomings of ML solutions. Specifically, there's a lot of frustration around ML being a black box that produces a score, and you have no idea what went into that score. There's frustration around the lack of control that the score is the score, and there's not much you can do about it. To address that, when applying ML to customer data, certain characteristics are highly desirable. Number 1, flexibility. Is there a preset list of insights, or is it flexible to generate the insight you want? Can you use the data you want? Control. Number 2, can you fine-tune to your specific business? Can you make your own compromises with your model, or are you stuck with what the tool gives you? And number 3, the marketplace. Is there only one way of doing it, or do you have options that can be combined to ultimately tailor to your business? Let's start by diving into the collection stage of the data supply chain. First off, you want a variety of collection methods. More data is better. More volume, more events, more history leads to better insights. Some examples for the types of data collection that you'll want are client side through things like JavaScript and pixels, server side through APIs and connectors. You could also have mobile data, which is collected through SDKs, libraries, and offline data too, so a way to bring in data sources that might not natively be online. Number 2, you want to collect complete data. Complete data is similar to more data, but it's more about context, the metadata. Not only tracking every interesting event, but as many data points about that event as possible. For ML, if we're predicting likelihood, for example, and we know all the metadata about that event, the better it will be at picking out what data points are useful for that prediction. So we want to know not only how many purchases there have been, but how many days in between, what days of the week, what was the acquisition source, etc. And the third key capability here in the collect stage is the ability to clean data at collection. There are obvious benefits to the quality of prediction here, but there are also huge benefits to the speed of the flow of the data when it's clean at the start. Moving into the standardized stage, since the data comes from so many places, there needs to be some mechanism for defining the data across all these sources so that it can be used and used fast. First off, a common taxonomy ensures data from different places that represents similar things can be understood, both by computers through the algorithm, but also by the business users, the people who will be using the system. Secondly, specifications enable you to collect data as it's expected, and if that's not happening as expected, it can be fixed. This enables high quality data over time. It's not, kind of a one-time set it and forget it thing. It's something that needs to be monitored. And then lastly, of course, machines aren't the only ones using the data. As I mentioned just earlier, you need to be able to translate the name of those insights to a business language to be usable by people. Ultimately, the value of your insights, both ML and others, depends on it being used. Many times, channel owners will not be data scientists or programmers, so that it's important that data can be understood across roles. Thinking about some examples of standardization, some words you might hear out there. The data layer is a way that we conceptualize the data layer that powers customer experience. That's a way of standardizing data. Mapping data could be a capability here where you're taking a whole bunch of different names for data and mapping it to one canonical name. The visibility of data is a big part of this as well. Moving on to the transform and enrich stage, once you have all that raw data, can you organize and build upon it, specifically knowing that this is not the final stop of the data? First off, a capability of identity resolution is important because this gets the data organized in a way where analysis can happen at the level that you need to understand the customer. Without this organization, most data scientists would probably have to do this themselves to apply ML. So this removes a step that they have to do. Secondly, feature engineering, for taking incoming data and using it to construct new data that can be used within ML. For example, if you have date of purchase, it's not overly useful just in the date of purchase, just in that form. But if that was turned into day of week, it would be useful for predicting purchase behavior. Or if you could understand the difference between the dates, then you can have the concept of momentum. Those attributes could very well help with machine learning predictions. Moving into the integration stage, there are some key capabilities here for making sure that the data doesn't stop flowing at the insight. To avoid becoming to avoid your ML project becoming another silo, like Dave mentioned earlier. So first off, the output of the model not being stuck in a silo. So capabilities here that are essentially the opposite of the standardization on the way in to map data back out to the places where the data needs to go. Secondly, a variety of modern approaches to data streaming and sharing. The ability to utilize tags, pixels, SDKs, APIs or plugins, libraries, CSVs or file imports to integrate data any way that's needed, because customers will be across all of those various places and the technologies in your tech stack all work differently. Moving into the activate stage, we have 4 key capabilities. So first off is smart connectors. You want to be able to trigger the right action at the right time. So control over what the data is going to do in the downstream system is beneficial. There's a spectrum of capability here versus, if you have a generic API versus a turnkey connector that a less technical user could ultimately leverage. Secondly, being accessible to users of various technical skill levels. Channel owners will need to use the insight, but they aren't necessarily running the models. So it's important that there's a variety of ways to access these insights. Third, activation in line with the model. So to avoid it becoming a silo, you don't want to have manual processes to move, the insight from one system to another, or a report that's generated where the insight ultimately dies. And lastly, real time is important as well, because insights go stale very, very quickly. So you'll want to make sure that the insight can be activated in real time. So here we have kind of all of those key capabilities listed out across the data supply chain. By ensuring that you have robust capabilities in each one of these areas in your machine learning platform, you'll ultimately ensure that the model has enough data going into it to come up with high quality insights. But you'll also make sure that those high quality insights are in a place where they can be immediately activated and benefit all downstream systems. And with that, I will turn it over to Dave to talk about specifically what he was able to build here at Tealium to deliver on some of these promises.
Thanks, Matt. Great description there. So let's very quickly revisit that data supply chain graphic that Matt walked through. And I just want to emphasize that we're finding our approach is so successful with early customers, in part because our audience stream customer data platform is already a perfect delivery vehicle for machine learning. By adding Predict to audience stream, what we're really doing is baking in machine learning so that it can happen automatically in line upstream with the normal process of data collection and integration. And this is pretty great because right now machine learning always happens downstream, right, where it's isolated. So not only that, but since Audience Stream is already a real-time activation platform, which means that predictions can be sent across your entire MarTech and analytics stack in real time immediately after being made, you can save an enormous amount of time while creating smarter, more data-driven audiences. You can orchestrate coordinated actions on them across all your downstream tools. So essentially, Audience Stream is the opposite of a silo, and it's just a fantastic delivery vehicle. This approach is going to benefit a machine learning project, whether you're just getting started as an organization and you're looking to get your feet wet, or whether you're very experienced, you've got many projects in progress or complete, and you're just looking for a way to enhance them or make them more efficient, right? Again, if you haven't started, I feel firmly that this is the lowest cost, lowest risk, fastest way that you can get started with machine learning and quickly see results, right, without getting bogged down. And if you're already doing ML, we're not seeking to replace any existing tools or processes. Instead, we just are offering capabilities that can supplement what you're already doing in some critical ways. The goal there is to save your team a lot of headaches, save a lot of repetitive work, and free those people to focus on the strategy and the exciting projects which differentiate your team and your business. So Matt mentioned earlier these guiding tenets or principles. Let's now just cover them real specifically in terms of how they're reflected in our new Predict product. So with V1 of Predict, we've taken your most commonly requested machine learning need, which is help me predict what my customers will do next, what my users will do next, and we've built an end-to-end solution for that, right? So will the customers return to your website? Will they purchase? Will they email sign up, reclaim an abandoned cart, become a VIP before Christmas? Our built-in models allow you to predict any behavior you want on any visit by every visitor. Any non-technical user can create, train, and deploy a predict model without writing a single line of code or needing a degree in statistics. It takes about 1 minute and about 5 clicks. Here on the model creation screen, you simply choose the behavior you want to predict and the time frame for the prediction. If you want flexibility to tweak your model, if you want to go under the hood, we offer some advanced configuration and tuning options. You can exclude any attributes you want from your customer data set. You can change the date range for training a model, etc. Flexibility and transparency are the name of the game here. We found that our competitors' tools tend to fall into 2 categories, right? The first are tools for data scientists, machine learning engineers who have advanced coding skills, DevOps knowledge, etc. And in the second category are black boxes that don't have any flexibility or transparency. Once you complete that simple model creation workflow, your new machine learning model is automatically created and trained for you. You can now visit this Model Explorer tab to view every version of every model you've created. You can see details about their trainings and their health scores, as well as trend reports for any models that you've deployed live. If you want more details about a model, simply click into any version. You'll see all the metrics and information that a data scientist or a machine learning engineer would expect to see, right? So full transparency. Since this particular type of propensity model is often judged by a metric called F1 score, we're showing that right there, as well as its constituent parts. You can see details about the sample size, the test set, a confusion matrix for the test set, area under the curve and ROC, and a probability distribution to explain the prediction range. One of the reasons we chose this particular algorithm and tuned it was the fact that it automatically culls through all your customer data attributes, and it only includes those which add predictive value to your specific model, right? So there's no need for you to manually choose attributes based on your assumptions, as happens with some other tools. We're showing you here the exact attributes which were incorporated into this model so that you've got that transparency piece. And we're finding that this is a simple but incredibly powerful way to sometimes gain insights and spur new questions and new conversations amongst your own team. Some of these included attributes or features may be obvious, right? But often there's going to be some that you might not expect, and they can spur some of those great conversations. If you like what you see, you simply click the deploy button. In one click, your model is deployed to our infrastructure. It's maintained for you. You have to do nothing. We even handle version control for you. So now at the end of every session by every visitor, the model runs and it outputs a prediction. This prediction is simply a new attribute in your customer data set. It's immediately available to you. You can query it, use it to create other attributes, rules, audiences in our audience stream CDP. You can use it for data layer enrichment in our Tealium IQ tag management system, whatever you want. Here on that model overview page, you can see a tile view for some quick info about the health of your models and the predictions that they're making. Predict's user interface is completely integrated into our customer data hub and our audience stream customer data platform, so you can easily use the predictions to create audiences, take actions on them across any of your tools right there. This is the opposite of a silo, and Matt already discussed how it's powerful because it allows Tealium to empower any of your downstream tools with consistent, organized, ML-powered data. Doesn't matter whether those tools have any ML capabilities themselves, and if you change vendors, no big deal. After all, right, the primary goal of marketing orchestration is to create an audience and take actions on them so that the people in that audience have a better experience. That's what a customer data platform should do at a high level. You've always been able to make audiences about historical data. Now with Predict, you can make predictions about the future, and you can use these to create smarter, more precise audiences. And the activation challenges are solved simply by nature of audience stream's existing features. So if we look at a few use cases real quick here, we can see one that plagues all of our clients, all of our brands across industries, which is abandonment, right? The most common version of this is cart abandonment. Essentially every B2C brand has a cart recovery campaign already in place, right? So notice that, we're going to make a couple improvements here. So with a typical approach without ML, your approach is pretty simple, right? Add every person who abandons a cart to an audience and send them some ads, send them an email, send them a coupon or a promo code, right? The result is you're treating everyone equally, which is kind of dangerous these days. You're wasting ad spend, you're causing some negative messaging, negative experiences, and you're just not managing your marketing ROI efficiently. By contrast, right now with Predict, you can do kind of a smarter cart recovery audience. So we've kind of put a fun example in here where we've actually made two changes. The first one was we removed all cart abandoners who are less than 50% likely to return in the next 3 days. The reason why is that those people are so unlikely to buy, why bother sending them this advertising, right? And then another fun thing that we've thrown in here that I, as a data nerd, would love to have tested myself or would love to test with customers in the future is, what if we take out everyone who is predicted to be more than, let's say, 80% likely to purchase, right? So the most likely, most motivated people, let's take them out of the audience. Let's avoid sending the message. Let's avoid giving away profit margin by sending these folks a discount code, right? So we're targeting the sweet spot. We've got some additional examples here that we can get to, but yeah, in the end, the goal is to optimize ad spend, to give better experiences, to use resources efficiently, and make sure we're maximizing the relevance of our messaging. So, a lot of great examples here, right? Engaging semi-likely purchasers, as we kind of covered. Suppression, a huge one these days. Preventing churn, critical, right, for any subscription-based business. Being able to predict churn is truly the next wave for those businesses. Customer insights, this kind of comes back to predicting churn, right? But it's generally the thought here is, how can we enable your own business intelligence team, your own analytics team, with a stream of insights that are looking forward into the future, right? Instead of only analyzing historical data and then sort of dotted line plotting that into the future and hoping it works. Building loyalty membership, VIP program analysis, how do you maximize the value of that? Always a great one. Funnel optimization. With Predict, you can predict every stage of your conversion funnel if you want to find those gaps, find ways to improve the width of the funnel as you go down. You can identify UX issues, CX issues, make sure that you don't maybe have any problems going on with your website, with your app, with specific devices, other features. And then we've got our cart recovery example there. So in the end, there's many ways that Tealium can help with a machine learning project. We can provide an unparalleled pipeline of high volume, high quality data with our customer data platform. Tealium Predict can now take advantage of this data foundation, this high quality pipeline, to enable ML-powered smart audiences. Our machine learning capability can dramatically scale the speed and the usefulness your team can generate insights. And with Tealium's capabilities across the full life cycle of data, these ML-powered audiences can be immediately activated across all integrated systems. So, the goal here, to wrap up, is to save you time and effort, to eliminate risk, to eliminate barriers to entry, and produce better insights which can fuel everything you do. This is just the beginning. We're super excited to see how you use Predict and to keep evolving it strategically with you. Matt, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for that great overview of Predict ML. Just to give you a sense for how Predict ML fits into the overall Tealium product set. Tealium is the maker of the Customer Data Hub, which is a full stack data orchestration platform. We have everything from the customer data platform that sits in the middle of that data supply chain, generating insights and activating those insights, in addition to very flexible, very comprehensive infrastructure to make sure that data can flow across the full life cycle of the data. So Tealium IQ Tag Management provides client-side data management capabilities so that you can use JavaScript and pixels to collect and deliver your data, whereas the Event Stream API Hub provides that same capability on the server side through connectors and libraries. And then Predict ML is our newest feature that sits within our Audience Stream CDP that like Dave mentioned earlier, takes your ability to generate insights from, kind of looking backwards and figuring out kind of what all that historical data is, but it allows you to kind of take action through having insights on forward-looking behavior, which really opens up your ability to manage and optimize customer experience. With that, we are going to go straight into some Q&A. We have some great questions here that we'll want to go over. First question we have, Dave, is I know my company already is using some machine learning models to identify audiences. Would this replace those efforts?
Yeah, great question there. The short answer is no, really, in the big picture. I think we mentioned this earlier, but machine learning is a huge space. We are never going to claim that there's a one-stop shop for that with Tealium. And if anyone else claims that to you, I would encourage you to run away as quickly as possible. First of all, we focus on machine learning for customer data, right? But let's assume that, it's the situation you mentioned where you're identifying audiences and you are working with customer data. What we can do is we can complement the efforts you're already doing. And let me illustrate how. So just yesterday, I was talking with a huge international partnership agency of ours, and they heavily use a really great machine learning tool called Data Robot with their customers. And so we had this exact conversation. And the truth is, Data Robot's pretty great because you can take a data set and you can throw a ton of algorithms at it and you can find value, right? It's sort of like a beautiful brute force method, right? And so really, in the end though, how do you take that value Data Robot just created for you, or how do you take similar value that your own data scientist just created for you, and how do you get that into the real world to make a difference to your customers? How do you ensure that your CMO or your CEO sees a return on investment for that? What are you going to do with it, right? And so by using our Audience Stream customer data platform, again, it's the perfect delivery vehicle for this. So we're actually partnering with that agency and with their heavy use of Data Robot, for example, to really find a beneficial solution where we can supercharge the value that's being created by those other platforms, all in real time too.
Cool. Another question here. What verticals is this good for? Does it work for any company? How can a model work effectively across all industries?
Yeah, so some good questions. I can see how these kind of tie together here. Since the best way for acting on these machine learning predictions is, as I just mentioned, via Audience Stream, right? And Audience Stream is focused on giving you a holistic view of a person, of a customer, of a visitor. The obvious industries that benefit from Predict right out of the gate are B2C, right? So whether that's e-commerce, retail, hospitality, finance, healthcare, anything you can think of where our customer is a person. But we actually have a couple interesting test users and test companies we've been working with that are B2B companies. One is a seller, a company that sells financial investments. And so essentially, right, they're B2B because they have an independent network of certified financial folks who sell different products and different licenses, different areas, etc. And we're finding with Predict, we can help them send better messaging to the reps at the right time and support the specific products that those reps are selling. So a lot of really interesting use cases here. Let's see, there was kind of another aspect of that. Does it work for any company? I just want to touch on that real quick. Our goal above all with what we do here at Tealium, not just with Predict, is we want to enable brands to move through that kind of multi-stage journey toward being mature with their data and being data-driven. Predict is a huge part of that, but being machine learning ready is not stage 1 or stage 2. So some brands are going to find themselves a little earlier in that journey, and we have the tools to help you advance into the later stages and really leverage ML.
Great. We have about 1 minute left, so why don't we take one more question. Let's go with, do you have any plans for more ML-powered features? What can we expect to come out in the future?
Sure. So absolutely, we're already heavily at work on R&D on a few different features. One is kind of the use of machine learning for ensuring data quality, monitoring, anomaly detection, alerting, all that kind of good stuff, so that we can provide customers of our customer data hub with as much ease and the lowest level of stress possible over time to make sure their data supply chain is working great. And then, as far as more like product related ML or more models, absolutely, we're working on a really cool approach to regression and classification modeling both. That's going to be really visual and sort of change the way marketing teams create audiences and segments. We're really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dave, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I think that was a really valuable coverage of machine learning, in addition to how all those lessons that we learned while we were developing our own product kind of came to fruition with a product. So, really interesting story. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you in the future.